Jordan Ott is a well-regarded coach. There's no doubt about it. But the natural questions that will come out of this beyond, look, question number 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, like you said, do you only hire people who have Michigan State ties? I mean, that is a question that the Suns are going to have to answer.
Mark, how are you, my friend?
I am good, sir. I am good. I wanted to tweet that I was on, but sorry, too many things are happening. So I wasn't able to do that before we started. So my apologies.
That is perfectly fine. You never have to apologize to me. We appreciate your time. Jordan Ott, new Suns head coach. A lot of skepticism due to his Michigan State ties. What did you hear about this process and how they kind of whittled it down to Jordan Ott?
Well, it's interesting. I have to say, as you know, I believe I was the first to report that Brian Gregory was going to be elevated to the top of the Suns front office hierarchy. And on Sunday, the same person who told me that Brian Gregory was going to get the Suns front office job told me that Jordan Ott was going to win this race. And there have been so many twists and turns in this search that even hearing that from such a smart, prescient source who was right on about Gregory, I couldn't confirm it with a second source, so I couldn't go with it, but I certainly bought it, believed it, and that's the way it's played out. And look, Jordan Ott is a very well-regarded coach. He's been with, I believe, 4 different franchises already. Steve Nash, who you know is someone that I hold in very high regard and someone whose career I covered very closely. Steve worked with Jordan Ott in Brooklyn and has always regarded him very well. I had another source describe him as very reminiscent of Taylor Jenkins, which I think is also high praise because I think Taylor Jenkins did a tremendous job in Memphis and established himself as a very good coach who's going to get another head coaching job in this league someday. But there's nothing I can pass along from talking to people in the league that I'm sure is going to change your opinion or assuage the concerns of PHNX listeners and Suns fans who are furious that can't, who I'm guessing cannot believe that yet another person with Michigan State ties is the guy who wins the race here. But that is exactly the way it's played out. And let's just say I look forward to the press conference. I hope Matt Ishbia is at the press conference when they introduce Jordan Ott as the next coach, because that will that will, how many questions will include the words Michigan and State in them at that press conference?
I think everyone. Look, I was just saying, Mark, I actually don't have a huge problem on this. I understood more the concern about Brian Gregory because of his lack of experience, but Jordan Ott is a guy that's been, around the NBA on staffs since 2013, was a finalist for that Charlotte job last year. I think there has been some unfair approach. Not that I should expect anything different from the internet, but an unfair approach towards him and his experience, as if he just came out of the video coordinator room at MSU and now is the head coach of the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, look, Jordan Ott is a well-regarded coach. There's no doubt about it. But the natural questions that will come out of this beyond, look, question number 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, like you said, do you only hire people who have Michigan State ties? I mean, that is a question that the Suns are going to have to answer. The other thing here is that, Johnny Bryant, I believe, is the associate head coach in Cleveland. He's the number 1 assistant there. So you hired a coach who was actually lower in the Cavaliers' own pecking order than Jordan Ott. But again, I'm with you. Jordan Ott is kind of innocent in this situation. He applied for the job. He wanted the job. It's a chance to coach, to be a head coach in the NBA. What is he supposed to do? Not take it because some people are going to be mad about his background? No, that would be ridiculous. This is the chance of a lifetime for him to be a head coach. And like I said, there are no shortage of coaches in this league who I trust, who I've asked for their read on him, and they all speak of him very highly. But, you know, the process was certainly weird. You know, they interviewed more than 15 coaches in round one. And then when they narrowed it down the first time, it was like 8 or 9. And then what was thought to be the final round actually included still 5 coaches, plus David Fizdale was still part of the process to some degree. So there were really 6 before they got to what actually became the finals, of them narrowing it down to Jordan Ott and Johnny Bryant. So one thing I will say about Ishbia, though, he always does press conferences. He does take our questions. You know, that's more than you can say for a lot of teams in this league right now. So I would assume that when Jordan Ott is introduced, that we're going to get both Brian Gregory and Matt Ishbia at the dais. I hope that's the case because, again, Matt Ishbia has shown a willingness to answer all these questions. You know, last Saturday was, you know, I first reported that Devin Booker was involved in the later stages of this search with the in-person, you know, the 5, I'm going to try to remember them all. And, you know, my memories, you know, I'm getting old, so my memory isn't as good. The 5 coaches who advanced to what actually were not the finals, but what was billed as the finals. Dallas's Sean Sweeney, Miami's Chris Quinn, both Jordan Ott and Johnny Bryant from Cleveland. They all went to Phoenix for face-to-face interviews. Devin Booker spoke to all of those candidates when they were in Phoenix. Over the weekend, I reported that Brian Gregory actually went to OKC to meet with Dave Bliss, who's still coaching in the playoffs, Oklahoma City's Dave Bliss. I don't know this for a fact, but I do not believe that Devin Booker was on the trip to actually go to Oklahoma City and meet with Dave Bliss. I do not have that confirmed, but it's just my working assumption that Devin Booker didn't travel. But Devin Booker was involved in the process for the last 5-ish candidates. It's been reported today by ESPN that Jordan Ott has Devin Booker's seal of approval. If that's the case, that's obviously a good sign. You know, Steve Nash giving him a strong recommendation, that's obviously a good sign. But like I said, I am eagerly awaiting the introductory press conference.
There's a belief from some online that this was not a thorough process. I feel like after going through that, it seems like they were very thorough in trying to figure out where they wanted to end up, even if they may have had an idea of people that they liked towards the end.
Well, look, it was thorough. I mean, you don't interview more than 15 candidates and claim it's not thorough. But I think the issue here is that, again, and Jordan Ott is just going to get dragged into this unfairly. This is not on him whatsoever. But another question I imagine that the Suns are going to have to answer is, did you just do this whole process knowing you wanted to hire Jordan Ott the whole time? And did you run through 15 plus candidates to put on this elaborate show and then just hire the guy you wanted all along? I think that's a fair question. I don't know what the Suns' answer is going to be. Again, I'm eager to hear it.
Did Johnny Bryant and the Knicks news yesterday have any impact on this final decision? I know there were some rumors that he might be a candidate in New York, but
I don't believe so. I know that was a natural thing to circulate yesterday in the wake of Tom Thibodeau's dismissal. The Knicks, like Johnny Bryant, he had a pretty prominent role on a Tom Thibodeau staff there already. But when the Knicks, in the statement we've received from Leon Rose explaining the decision by the Knicks to go away from the most successful coach they've had in the 21st century, you heard Leon Rose say, "We are singularly focused on winning a championship," something that hasn't happened in New York since the early 70s. That's a tough position to put a first-time head coach. Maybe Johnny Bryant is on high on their list. Maybe he's going to be considered for this Knicks opening. But is a first time coach the answer when you're? I mean, the Knicks have basically made it. This is championship or bust. The Suns are not in a championship or bust position. The
Yeah.
Suns are in a position I'm not even sure I have the words to fully describe it. So I really don't think they were related. And certainly with the Suns choosing Jordan Ott, it's kind of a moot point at this point.
When when this dust settles, the last or the biggest question remaining for the Suns is the Kevin Durant situation. Have you heard anything new on that front? Or we pretty much sounds like they're going to make a move, but we don't know exactly how that's going to shake out at this point.
Yeah, I had this in my Sunday night story that as part of the search, there definitely was messaging that emerged that yes, the Suns are not expecting to retain Kevin Durant. And I think coaches who were involved in the process came away with the feeling that Durant is not going to be on this team when training camp convenes in late September, early October. And look, the difference, we've talked about this before. In February, the Suns unilaterally explored Kevin Durant trade options, and it took Kevin Durant going to them and saying, guys, I don't want to be traded in season. Don't trade me. Let's finish this season out for those talks to kind of be halted. This time, it's going to be done in collaboration with Kevin Durant. I think it's been, working knowledge around the league that the Suns and Kevin Durant's representative, business manager Rich Kleiman, his longtime business manager, they're going to try to figure this thing out together. But I would say the expectation around the league is that there is going to be some sort of Kevin Durant trade. It's much harder to forecast Giannis Antetokounmpo's future at this point because we don't have clarity. Does Giannis actually want out? Does Giannis want to stay? We are waiting for that clarity to this point, and it's frequently been suggested in recent days that the Durant situation might underline might have to wait for that kind of clarity. But if you're predicting a future Hall of Famer to be traded this offseason, it's a much safer bet, I think, at this point to start that list with Durant.
Do you get the feeling that if either one of those are moved, that you'd probably see something around the draft just because it's going to have to involve draft capital to get something done?
I think that's an assumption, but I can't tell you that for sure. I wish I knew. I wish I had it nailed to that degree, but still gotta the Durant's future, like you said, and Bradley Beal's for that matter, those will now be the focus between now and the draft for the Suns. They've done their coaching search, they've got their new GM, they've got their new coach. I'm going to say one more time, PHNX, send the private PHNX plane to get me out there for the press conference. I would love to be there. But once that is done, it is time to focus on roster.
Mark, it's only an 18-hour drive to Dallas. I'll be there shortly. We'll get back here in time for the press conference. I highly recommend that you all go subscribe to the Stein Line on Substack. Great NBA Finals coverage, all of the rumors and news and interesting things going on in the NBA from Mark and Jake Fisher over there. It is one of my favorite subscribes. You need to go do it. You can also check out Mark on DLLS. Mark, thank you for the time, my friend.